Well, joining me now is the host of Crucible, Andrew Wilson, Andrew's wife and author of Occult Feminism, The Secret History of Women's Liberation, Rachel Wilson, Emily Wilson, no relation, from Emily Saves America, and the feminist writer and author of I Don't, The Case Against Marriage, Clementine Ford. So welcome to...
Wow, the case against marriage. Why should there be a case against it? But anyway, that's interesting.
All of you. Andrew, great to have you back on Uncensored. Are you remotely apprehensive about unleashing Mrs. Wilson on the world like this?
No, but she is the only Wilson on the panel that I claim. I'm just pointing it out.
Everyone seems to be either called Wilson or Emily in this debate, in this two-header. Rachel, welcome to Uncensored. You reached out to me on X and very boldly said, if you want to debate this properly, get me on. You're here. How are you feeling about this?
Well, thank you for having me, Piers, and thank you, Andrew, for unchaining me from the stove just long enough to appear today. I got a day pass from the patriarchy.
The patriarchy is benevolent.
So true. Yeah. So I'm very happy to be here. People love to attack my husband.
I'm sorry, but already he just spoke over his wife. Already. That's a bit telling. You couldn't give her her chance to have her intro. She didn't say anything during your intro. Yes, I know he made a joke, but something about that. Just give her a minute to give her intro, man. You didn't have to do your little joke. She's actually doing a joke by herself anyway.
Via me, I'm like the favorite way to do that. So I thought, why not come on and talk to people myself?
So look, Rachel, let's just cut to the quick. A lot of Andrew's critics, not me, a lot of his critics say that he's an obvious, blatant misogynist. He thinks all women should be, kept at home, working away on the stove, the housework, whatever it may be, and know their place in life. You are actually married to him. You've been subject to mockery inadvertently through the last debate we had about this, for having to endure being his wife. What is it like being married to Andrew Wilson?
Well, it's pretty awesome. I mean, he's hilarious. He's a really smart guy. He's very charming. And most of all, he's a great dad and a great husband. And I share his worldview. So I would agree. In fact, I would say I would probably be the more bitter misogynist out of the two of us. If you really had to pick one, it would probably be me. So
really, why do you say that?
I just think that feminism has absolutely destroyed so much of what I hold dear in life, and it's held me back more than it's helped me. It's one of the reasons
I noticed the slow blink from the feminist on the right. Did you notice that?
I started looking into the history and investigating it for myself. And I think it's just created a world where we now have a two-income economy. And for women like me who do want to prioritize motherhood, it makes it extremely hard. It just makes it financially difficult. I faced tons of social pressure. Had my first daughter at 20, wanted to stay home. Everyone around me, even the so-called Christian conservative women, told me it was a terrible idea. You can't do that. You have to bring the baby to daycare. You're going to put yourself at risk. Your husband's going to hurt you. You're going to be abused if you don't have your own money and your own career. And I think it's backwards. I think it's the most inefficient, stupid thing we've ever come up with. And that in the future, people will look back at the feminist experiment as a goofy time in history where we tried this wild experiment that failed miserably. And thank God it's over.
Wow. Okay. Well, Clementine Ford, I'm sure that you agree with every word of that, don't you?
Firstly, I'm very glad that you're happily married. It's great. A lot of women are not happily married and they find it very difficult to leave marriages, particularly because of the financial strain. So good for you. I do think that your historical understanding of feminism is extremely skewed. The idea that somehow we've only created a two-income household because feminism has tried to destroy the world is historically inaccurate, in large part. Well, firstly, you're also talking about feminism from your very, and when I say limited, I'm not trying to insult you, but the limited perspective of feminism in America and the understanding of the economy in America. It's not taking into account the global reality of the fact that women have always worked, women still continue to work. Women, for the most part, produce the majority of the world's underpaid, if, drastically underpaid labor. When you talk about a two-income...
It's interesting when people bring up stats like this in these debates. I'm not saying she's wrong or right, but unless you provide evidence, like anybody can just say anything. For all I know, she's right. But you understand it. So always when you listen to these things, say, "Oh, that's interesting," but then research yourself, unless they provide evidence.
Household being somehow instituted by feminism, you're failing to take into account that even in America, you know, the kind of the glamorization of this golden age of marriage in the 1950s to the early 1960s, which the marriage historian Stephanie Coontz calls the long decade. This coincided with an increase in women in the workplace. So it's not as if there was this gold.
Honestly, if I was on a panel like this, everything would be so different, as you know, my fellow expressions of consciousness. Because I hear all of this and it's just people saying what they've heard other people say. Nobody has gone around America or the world and spoken to every woman about her marriage, spoken to every man about his life. None of us have done that because it's literally, well, highly improbable. I can't say impossible, but highly, highly, highly improbable that we can speak to literally everybody in the world. So we're all just taking this information from other people who have done a little bit of study here, a little bit of study here, with a little study group there, a little study group there. Then we form our opinions and we come at the world strong. Like, I know what the world is, I know what marriage is, I know what the reason for breakup is. Never forget, people, we are very unique people as a species. Nobody knows everybody's internal world. You can have data, then superimpose that data upon a whole nation or a whole gender. But what are you really doing? What you're actually doing is you're putting your own agenda onto other people, making them feel a certain way, like Rachel Wilson just said at the beginning. But, oh no, I'm 20 years old and a mother, and people are telling me that I can't stay at home and my husband's gonna what? Hurt me or something like that? So people are getting that information from other people. Like, there's just no reason to just go into fear like that. But this is what happens. Fear can be very addictive, because when we get into our fight or flight mode and then we start getting defensive and start trying to attack things that maybe we shouldn't, instead of just listening to each other, let's listen to each other. Let's be present. Actually be present. Without bringing in a so-called past all the time, because nobody knows what happened truly in the so-called past. Because as people say, it's the winners that write the tales of the wars, for example. It's the people in power that put in the education of what happened in the so-called past, etc., etc. You know what I'm saying?
Golden age where women where married women, the labor that is required to support the middle class is has always been relied on for poor and disenfranchised women, largely in America, black women.
All right. Look,
for a start.
Let
me just finish.
we have to speed things up a little bit.
And the economy, the downturn in the economy, the boom that happened after the Second World War was unsustainable. It was a wonderful time between around 1940 to 1970 for white working class men in particular, and then it began to.
But I have a question for you.
One of the reasons why women had to go into the workforce was because they had to help support their families.
Okay, I have a question for you, Clementine. It's a very simple question, but I think it'll be an interesting question to ask you. What is a woman?
I'm not going down the path of debating trans women with you.
Trans women are women. Trans women. I asked you what a woman is.
Okay, I'll tell you. But I know that because this is your tactic. This is what you do. What is a woman?
Why is this such a hard thing to answer?
It shouldn't be controversial.
I'll tell you what a woman is. A woman is someone who has at least at one point in her life felt scared of a man.
Sorry?
So
but you guys never want to talk about that.
Hang on.
You guys never want to talk about that.
So any man who's ever felt afraid of another man is a woman?
No. That's not what I'm saying.
This is exactly why you're wearing that shirt that says repeal. You should put the 19th under it. It's unbelievable. What are you talking about? A woman?
Come on, let's all agree that was a terrible answer. Is a person who's felt fear from a man. So a little boy fearing his dad, let's say, is actually a girl. Come on. We all know what's really going on here. But do a better attempt than that. When you're literally fighting for women, you should be able to say what a woman is.
Anybody who has ever at one point been afraid of a man, it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Do you have an actual argument here?
Would you let me finish speaking? Or do
how long is it going to take for you to finish? How long is it going to take for you to finish?
Yes, do you really just invite people on your show to be interrupted like this?
Well, Clementine, look, with all due respect, we did do a bit of research into what you said about me in the past, so I think I'm entitled to give you...
So you already know what I think about that question, because I've written about you asking that
Yes,
question.
you have. In fact, you said, like, all of
So
the
why
big...
would you ask it again when you know what my
I'm
answer
just
to that
to
is?
enlighten the audience who have no idea what you're talking about,
Okay.
or me. Like all of the biggest, that's me apparently, currently jumping on the transphobic shuttle to Ding Dong Station. Morgan wants you to believe this is about fairness and equality, specifically fairness and equality in women's sports. That was exactly what it was about. And the problem is, Clementine, with all due respect to you, the reality is...
I doubt it. I doubt it's going with due
I'll
respect.
treat you with perfect respect, but your inability to just simply state what a woman actually is, particularly given 2 weeks ago in the UK, the Supreme Court made it very clear that a woman is a biological female. That's it. It's a scientific fact. The fact that you can't answer that is part of the problem.
I'd like to know, the thing is that I would like to know why you, in particular, are so obsessed with this definition of what a woman is. Firstly, how does it impact you in any way? Secondly,
I have a 13-year-old daughter.
As a woman,
I have a 13-year-old daughter.
I
And
can
if my
tell you as a
13-year-old
woman.
daughter decides she wants
I
to
can
hang
tell
on.
you as a
You
woman.
ask me a question.
I've never
You ask me a question. I'm going to answer you. Well, if you don't want an answer, don't ask me a question. Here's my answer to your question. I have a 13-year-old.
You won't
I have a 13-year-old daughter. I have 7 nieces, right? And some of them
you're
are
a real
very.
expert then
Some,
on
if
women,
I
I
may
guess.
answer your question, some of them are very good at sport, right? The idea
Right.
that they would one day have their dream of potentially an Olympic place or a Team GB place, whatever it may be, a world championship place, taken from them by a biological male, I think is completely outrageous. And by the way, so does most of the world now, which is why there's been a reversing, screeching U-turn on this particular subject. But I come back to my question to you. Your inability to say what a woman is, and yet here you are lecturing women on how they should behave as women. It's completely perverse.
I think that reducing women, specifically to your biological deciding of what you
mine.
think a woman is,
It's
because
called science. It's their chromosomes. You have different chromosomes to me. It's not me saying that. I'm not writing.
I'm sure you're not the first.
Not writing the science.
I'm not the first person. I'm sure I'm not the first person to tell you about intersex people. So how do you?
I'm not
what
talking
do you
about
do with
intersex
someone-
people.
No,
what do you-
This is
how
all
do you
wrong
define-
anyway. The intersex is not
How
a
do you
third
define-
sex. It's not a third sex. That's ridiculous. There is no third sex. There's 2 sexes, male, female, categorized scientifically. Intersex is not a third sex. Anybody can look that up in 5 seconds. Total lie. How did you not know that, by the way? How did you not know intersex is not a third sex?
I didn't say that intersex with a third.
You
third
did.
sex. But
Yeah,
intersex
that's exactly
people
what the implication
exist,
was.
and intersex
That's-
people have intersex
so
people
what?
can have a mixture of chromosomes.
To be fair, yeah, intersex people, nobody debates that intersex people are ambiguous, let's say, because of course some of them can have both male and female genitalia. But if you're not ambiguous within your body, if you have a so-called male body and a so-called female body, yeah, you should be able to say what a woman is. Because of course woman does pertain to at least one of the bodies, because there's only literally 2 sexes.
So if you
Are you saying
present
they're a third
to the
sex
world,
or aren't you?
if you
Are
present
saying
to the
they're-
world as
Andrew, let her speak. Andrew, let her speak. My gosh.
If they're not a third sex, then you have no argument here. Do you understand that? If what he's saying is
why
this
are
is
you
what is
so
objective.
obsessed
This
with
is
trans
what
women?
Yeah,
Why
I'll
are you
tell
so
you.
obsessed
I don't
with,
need.
Why are you so
I
obsessed
don't
with
need. I'm
defining
going to answer the
trans
question.
women?
Let-
For
I
a
don't
start,
need.
for a start.
Yeah.
No, everyone has
tell you.
interrupted me. Let me speak for
You
a
just
moment.
asked a question.
Let me speak for a
asked
moment.
question.
Let me speak for a moment.
Clementine, and then refusing to allow people to answer. If
Yeah,
you
so
don't
I'll
want an
answer the
answer,
question.
don't ask a question. The truth
Objective.
about the truth
Fine,
about
go
the
on.
the
Answer.
problem is
Go
the
on.
problem is feminists in particular. I've noticed feminists have latched on over the last few years to this idea that if anybody raised any concerns about the way the trans lobby was trying to make things unequal, unfair, and unsafe for actual women, then they were immediately transphobic. I kept saying, I want trans people to have the exact same rights to fairness, equality, and safety as me or you. However, what was happening was women's rights were being eroded. so that things were not fair, they weren't equal, and they weren't safe. And we saw absolute parodies of this in the Olympics, in the boxing ring, where people who have been banned from the world championships because they apparently reported positive for male chromosomes were getting in the ring and beating women up in the ring. And so a woman's going to die if this was allowed to carry on. So now people have stopped it. Now sporting bodies around the world have stopped it. But you, Clementine, I say this respectfully, are still flying the flag for this bullshit. And you can't even say what a woman is. And I just find the fact that you want to lecture women like Rachel on how they should be as a woman is completely perverse, given you don't even know or don't want to say what
I
an
haven't
actual
said
woman
anything
is.
to Rachel. I haven't said anything to Rachel. I've never met Rachel before in my life until today.
Well, you responded to
I had
what
no
she,
idea who she
you
was.
responded to what she said about the
But
role of a
I wasn't
woman.
lecturing her. I wasn't lecturing
Well, it
her.
sounded like
I
you were
wasn't
lecturing to me.
lecturing her about
Let
the
me
role
bring
of
in
a woman
Emily.
at
Let me
all.
bring in Emily. He's been
I was
waiting.
actually telling her
Let me bring in Emily, who's been waiting
about the
patiently.
historical reality
right.
of economics in the US.
Let me bring in Emily.
But
who's
you
been...
wanted to divert it to talk about trans women because that's clearly.
No, you banged
your
on about
little
trans
bugbear.
women. I just said to you, if you don't know
I
what a
would
woman is,
think
we've
that
got a
would
problem.
get back to that,
you
by the
asked
way,
the question,
because she's
Piers.
wrong.
No, let's be honest. Pierce said nothing about trans women. All he said is, what is a woman? Your mind went to trans. He only said, what is a woman? So it's interesting that your mind went to trans.
No, I just...
She's wrong about the economic history. She's the one looking at it through an economic prism that's extremely narrow. She's using feminist standpoint theory to try to tell us what the history of economics is.
Yeah.
She can't explain to us
Well,
why, through all of human history and all
Let her
of
finish,
human
lady.
history,
Let her finish,
Where's
lady.
your
Let her
Excuse me,
finish,
ma'am.
lady. You talk
From
plenty,
Rachel.
lady. You
why
talk plenty, lady. Let her
through
finish.
all of Western history we were able to raise a family, like a janitor could raise a family with 4 children on his income up until 1970. And what happened in 1970? We pushed women into the workforce in huge numbers, and we practically doubled the workforce overnight by pushing mothers and women into the workforce. This happened right alongside the creation of gender studies as an academic discipline. And now we are in a situation where we don't have a family economy. We have an individual income economy, which means most people...
I'm not being funny, but let this other person speak. The fourth person on the panel was in the third slide of the guests.
can't raise a family without both parents working.
Okay, let me bring in Emily, who's been waiting very patiently. Emily, good to see you again. Now, you started a kind of MAGA civil war when you railed against women who want to be a trad wife. You posted a TikTok video, which caused a lot of mayhem. Let's take a look at this.
I'm sorry, I hate to call out my own party, but the young girls on the right promoting this like trad wife bullshit. I just want to make sourdough for my husband. That's great. I'm all for it. I promote traditional values. I understand. I have been working since I was very young. I don't really plan on being working. I suggest you find a hobby that makes you money. But you guys, guess what? Guess what, baby girl? That lifestyle working out, a man, a provider, you just get to sit at home, bake bread every day. Slim to none. I would say none that's going to work out for you, or quite literally anyone you know. You're actually setting yourself up for failure because it could not be easier if...
Again, like I said earlier, this perspective that you have is literally your own. Let people live. Let people live how they want to live, of course, unless they're hurting somebody. Let people live how they want to live unless they're hurting somebody. So someone's happy being a so-called trad wife. Even if you think it's fake, even if you see them going, somewhere where they may become unhappy, just support them with love. Support them with love. And I know that's not a wishy-washy thing. Again, unless they're being hurt or someone's hurting them, then you are just projecting your own insecurities about somebody else having an alternative lifestyle to yourself. And which is one of the whole problems that we have in the world. Let people live how they want to live, do what they want to do, unless they're hurting anybody. Someone. It's that simple.
If that's what you're going to pursue, to be trapped by a man. Okay? Also, let's bring some other things to the table.
What a word, trapped by a man. But men are not all idiots. Most men actually want to help their lifelong partner. They work hard to help their lifelong partner. They would seek to do what they can to help their lifelong partner feel good. We even have this quote, happy wife, happy life, which lots of men subscribe to, whether you believe in that or not. A lot of people don't seem to understand that men genuinely speaking, would do anything for their woman or their child. There's always going to be a small minority that wouldn't, obviously.
Table besides sourdough. Guys want to be mentally stimulated as well as physical, okay? But I'm just like, please, you guys are too young to be promoting this. And also, by the way, it's cringe. You guys are cringe, okay?
Now, Emily, are you standing proudly by that TikTok?
Thank you guys for laughing. That is supposed to be the point of a lot of my videos. I don't take things too seriously. I usually say things like this and don't think anything of it. I do want to point out in the video, I did start it by being like, look, I love stay-at-home moms. I support them. I promote conservative values. I think the issue with the video is a lot of people just took the video and then gave their own meaning. The group I was specifically bashing on was the young girls in their 20s that promote like traditional lifestyles online that we all know in the right-wing community absolutely do not live these lifestyles. And it's just a bit over the top. It's kind of more cosplay than anything. So of course I support mom.
I would agree that some of the tradwife movement that I've seen online does come across as cosplay. However, again, if they're happy, if they're enjoying life and they're having a nice relationship, let them live. Let them cook, as people are saying now. Let them cook.
Moms that do that. I just don't support the girls pretending to do it, I guess, if that kind of makes sense.
I'm not sure it does. Andrew, did it make sense to you?
Well, I mean, she's right in a sense that there's a lot of LARPing that goes on the right with the supposed traditional movement, which she's absolutely right, isn't living the traditional lifestyle. However, it's still a counterintuitive message to put out there that, oh, you're going to be trapped by your husband and his income. It's like, good. Don't you want to be in a relationship with your husband and have access to his income? Like, what's the problem here? That would be the values you're trying to move towards, right? So ultimately, it's a contradicting message. I understand why you got a bunch of garbage for it. It is a good idea, I think, to point out the LARP, and a good idea to point out how much faux traditionalism is on the right because it's a way for them to peddle sex, and that's exactly what they're doing. You see them in skimpy outfits doing exactly that. Totally fair. But on the other hand, you absolutely should not be putting out a message which ridicules women for wanting to be stay-at-home moms and actually live some type of lifestyle which is conducive to their children and family. That's silly.
Let's play at this stage the clip.
Yeah, I mean, also trapped is just the wrong word to use, but overall, my message I stand by.
Okay, I want to play, because I think it fits in well here, the Caroline Levitt clip.
But you meant the word trapped. You meant it. Like, what other way could you say it? Relying on? No matter what you say, you essentially implying that the woman would be relying on her husband in a negative way.
This is where she's working with her baby. We'll just show the picture of her working in the White House with a baby in one hand and helping to run the country with the other. Now, when I first saw that picture, I thought, wow, that's a pretty extraordinary, powerful image of a young woman who's very young to be doing the incredibly important job she does. She does it, I think, extraordinarily well. And she's a mother, and she's feeding her son whilst doing this at the same time. Rachel, when you saw that image, it got a lot of blowback, good and bad. You know, some people loved it, some people hated it. What did you think about it?
Well, I actually tweeted about this too, because although I'm a big fan of Caroline as a person, I think she's great, she's smart, she's lovely. I don't understand this compulsion, especially in the Trump administration, but on the right in general, where we're supposed to be conservatives, where we are pushing mothers to work. Trump has been a huge proponent of hiring women, getting women back to work as soon as possible after having the baby. And I think this is a huge mistake because, number one, what are we conserving? If we're not conserving the traditional family and traditional gender roles and motherhood in the middle of a birth rate crisis, what are we conserving as conservatives? Just like lower taxes? I mean, should be a core issue for us on the right to say, no, motherhood is not a part-time gig that you do on the side. You don't, ship your baby off to daycare where they're spending 3 times as much time with a low-wage daycare worker as they are with mom while you go and do your career. There's plenty of life to live after raising kids. I think after you've done that, if you want to venture out and do a few more things, once you have the empty nest, I think that's okay. But pushing mothers to work it's one of the key things that's tearing apart the fabric of society because we're not raising our own children. We're not passing down our values to them. We're sending them to daycare and we're sending them to state-run schools, and that's who they're being raised by.
Wow, nobody interrupted her.
All right, Clementine, your response to that?
Do you work, Rachel?
No.
You don't make any money from your podcasting
I make some money,
or
but
your
I do.
appearances?
I do maybe
you do some form of paid employment.
Yes. First of all, my children are grown up now. I'm 44 years old, so I had my first one at 20. They're grown up. They're moved out.
Yeah.
But I work still very, very part-time, maybe a couple hours a week at most.
But do you have
Because my primary responsibility is to my husband.
But you've got 5 children, right? Is that correct? And they're all grown up and all moved out, or you've still got some young children?
We still have a
youngest
couple.
one- The youngest
Yeah, we
ones
still have
are
a couple
teenagers.
at home. And by the way, just making an
Okay.
argument from
So
hypocrisy.
can I just
Bring
ask
out the
you?
hypocrisy.
Can I just ask?
Nobody was speaking to you, Andrew. Okay, nobody was speaking to you. Let your wife, so-called, speak up for herself or so-called defend herself. Yeah, she's obviously a smart person as well. Like,
Can I just ask you? Do you find, even with the small amount of part-time work that you do, which you do get paid for, do you find satisfaction from that? Do you get satisfaction from that work?
It's not the money, because Andrew makes far more than I make. I make a very, very tiny amount of money off of, my book, and a couple of appearances here and there might sell a few books. It's practically nothing. If I was doing it for the money, it'd be a waste of even the couple of hours. But what I would say to that is, we're not against women doing other things. So if you look at the Bible and the Proverbs 31 woman, she does a lot of things. She's out buying land. She's making decisions. She's doing all kinds of things. The difference is that she's doing them under the purview of the guidance and leadership of her husband and for her family, not for a corporation, not for her own glory, not for her own ambition.
okay, let Clementine come back in.
A lot of that depends on whether or not you have faith in the Bible, which obviously not everyone does. But the reason I asked you those questions wasn't because I was trying to set you up or anything like that. It doesn't surprise me that you would get some satisfaction. To me, the point of the question wasn't about the money. It's about the work. It's about the passion that you put into it. And the reason I asked was because a multi-year study done by Adrienne Freck and Sarah Damaske, found that the mental health of women who worked full-time after the birth of their first child was significantly higher than those who didn't have paid work at all. So I think that taking into account the fact that for a lot of women, and this is also what Betty Friedan found when she wrote The Feminine Mystique, and Stephanie Coontz backed this up as well in her book, The Way We Never Were, which is a history of the
But are you married, Clementine? I've no idea about your situation, but are you married? Do you have kids? What's your deal?
I've got a kid. I'm not married.
Okay, but you have a...
I'm a single mother.
Okay.
And I have a very excellent relationship with my son's father. We co-parent together very well, but we're not married. We don't live together. I certainly have found, since having a child, I mean, I've always worked anyway, but I've been working since I was 13 years old, but I've always found that work for me is very satisfying. And what I'm saying is that these are the findings of multiple historians, anthropologists, scientists, that
these are the
I wonder if that has anything to do with the breakup. I'm not like trying to pry or anything, but it's just interesting that she said that she's very much into working, but the marriage didn't work out. And of course, the so-called conservatives would argue that that's one of the problems that can arise, is that there isn't balance, essentially.
Findings of diehard feminists who are only investigating this from a feminist point of view. They're already sold on the ideology, and what they do is they cherry pick data.
Is a world-renowned historian. She's not specifically a feminist. She's a world-renowned historian, and these were her findings as well. So you cannot deny the reality. If when you look at the
I'm not being funny, but let her speak. Nobody was speaking when you were speaking, Rachel.
Women can't do anything else. We're not saying women can never leave the house. We're not saying you can't have.
Remember, guys, this is my channel, which is about awakening. So of course I have to bring it back to awakening, to spirituality, to consciousness. Do you not see the ego playing out here? Because these people, particularly Rachel, her husband, and Clementine, we haven't really heard the other one speak so much, because they're so identified with their personhood, which they are not really, as you are the observer of it, that when they feel like it's coming under attack, they quickly go to defend it. But it's like putting out a fire that you didn't start. Always remember, you are the observer of the mind, of the thoughts. If you want to really self-actualize, or if you're Christian, if you want to be like Jesus, you cannot be so pulled by someone attacking the personhood that you are. Because you know there's something more. Even again with Jesus, he knew there was something more, which was the so-called Father. So it's like, okay, do what you want to me, to my identity. My Father has got me. But the Father really is the greater part of all. That means yourself too. So they're resting themselves in their identity, not in the expanded aspect of themselves, which is a pure consciousness or God or source or universe, whatever word you want to use. Brahman even.
Other things in your life that you find fulfilling.
You're suggesting that the primary role for a woman, and that, you know, in your faith, I'm not going to discredit that, but your faith in God says that this is what you believe God says that you should be doing. But the primary role for a woman is that she should be staying at home, that she should be devoted to her husband, she should be devoted to her children. The facts do not back that up. The facts of familial satisfaction don't back that up.
Well, hang on. Okay, let me jump in. Hang on.
Yes, they do.
Hang on. Sorry, Clementine. I think you've chosen the wrong moment to say that. You've clearly got a woman here on the panel, but the facts completely back that up. She's had a lot of kids. She's very happily married. She loves
that there would be exceptions to the rule, but statistically speaking,
you've literally got one sitting there in front of you.
That's completely untrue, though. For her to say that this one study, that this one survey is going to tell us something. First of all, we have two.
It was a multi-year study.
Let me ask you, Clementine. Let me ask Clementine. When you were you married or not? I can't remember what you said. Were you married?
No, I've never been.
Okay. But when you were with your partner before you broke up, who did the household chores and stuff like that? I mean, how did you delineate that as a feminist?
It was a struggle, because even in lots of supposedly egalitarian households, and, you know, again, the data backs up that even women who make more money than their partners or their spouses, tend to do more unpaid domestic labor. This is the
who did most of the domestic chores
in my house?
Yeah,
me.
You did.
Me.
Okay, and Rachel, who does most of them in yours?
That's the reality for.
Well, hang on. Rachel, who does the domestic stuff in your house, Rachel?
I do absolutely all of it, and the thing I want to say to
so you're very similar. I mean, it seems to me you're both.
I care.
Right?
I like what Pierce is doing here.
I care far less about women's fulfillment in careers than I care about children and how they're being raised, and I want her to justify to me why we should be paying low-wage daycare workers to raise our children rather than doing it ourselves. How does it make sense to take your duty of motherhood and simply put it on a different random woman? How does that system make sense? Why should we tell women to do that?
If you would like to stay at home and raise your children, you're not answering
totally fine. You're not answering the question.
My question is, how is it good for children
it's a question
for
of
them
choice.
to be raised by
daycare workers? It's actually not.
No.
It's not worse for children to be raised by working mothers.
No, it is a question of choice. Clementine is right there. However, the question is, why should you choose that choice?
That's also the facts back that up. There is no.
No, they don't. There's no facts. Listen, lady, there are no facts on.
You see, this is what I said earlier about facts, so-called facts. People are getting their facts from other people. So it's like you're just trusting other people's so-called facts and so-called findings to back up your literal identity in how you perceive reality. To be truly woke is to understand that you, again, are the observer, like I keep saying, consciousness of the experience that you are having. But you get tangled up into the foreground when you are really the background, perceiving the foreground, which is the movie that is your identity, which is still part of you, of course, but it's not all of you.
That is not true.
There are no facts on planet Earth that back up that single mother households have better outcomes. That's one. Two, that outsourcing your... Let me finish. Lady, if you outsource the raising of your children, you're already making yourself a single mother, just so you know. Here's what's going on. Just so that you understand.
Are you a single father because your wife raises your children for you?
Lady.
Excuse me, don't call me lady.
Can you let me finish? Can anybody finish a point? No.
She's completely right. Why are you saying lady? I've watched Andrew a lot, and I get where he's coming from, and he's very smart and does say some things that I'd agree with, but his attitude and some things that he says I don't agree with, is just crazy. Lady, lady, lady. That's not polite. You know her name. You know her name, and you know that's not polite. You know you're trying to be polarizing. For what? For your own ego.
Or
I don't know.
only
Do you have a point?
Are
You don't
only
seem to
you
be
allowed
making
to?
one.
I'm trying to make one. So
You don't
if
seem to be
you
making a
outsource-
point, Andrew.
If you outsource your children's raising to strangers, answer Rachel's question and tell her how that makes more sense than having the child raised by their own biological mother. Actually answer.
Well, in my case, it makes more sense because I need to make money to pay my bills to raise my child.
So
But
this
in
is
many
how
other
they're doing it.
families, it makes.
What if you
If you
depended
see
on
the
your
problem?
husband's income?
Do you see the problem of
Now
how we
it's my
ended up
turn
here?
to finish. Now it's my turn to finish. But actually, again, if you knew what you were talking about, if you actually read anything about the data on these things, rather than just reaching into your gut for a feeling that feels
Let's
through
go over
you.
the data.
The data.
Show me the data that shows that if you outsource
the data shows that
There was a father in the
data
household.
shows
Let me bring Emily in, because Emily's been, again, Emily's been, hang
there
on.
is no statistical data to support the fact that children raised by mothers who work are less happy than children raised by
Yes,
mothers who
there
stay at
is.
home.
There's
I
tons of
would
data.
never try and stop Rachel.
There's so
your wife,
much
from staying home to raise
overwhelming
your
data.
children. That's her
There-
choice.
Well,
That's
hey,
her choice
listen,
to do that.
there is
But
so
it's not
much
true that
overwhelming
because
data.
that's her choice.
All right,
that
let me
means
bring
that
Emily in.
all other women.
Let me bring
And
Emily in.
Piers knows that.
Emily was trying to say
Yes,
something.
you don't want your daughters and you don't want your daughters and your nieces being forced to stay at home to raise families.
I don't want.
There is-
I don't want.
There's
I don't
overwhelming
want my
evidence
kids
that
to
the
be forced to do
outcome-
anything. No, Emily, you wanted to say something.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I'm not going to argue data with either of you guys. I'm sure you know more than me, but I can say that my father is my hero and the most important person in my life. And if I didn't have him and he wasn't in the household, I don't know where I would be today. And my girlfriends who were raised without fathers in the household, I do see them struggle in different ways when it comes to dating and all these different things. And it's funny because it's like they do make a point. Like if there was a father in the household supporting you, I think a lot of these issues wouldn't be what they are. So I think there's points to both of these things.
Okay, let me ask Andrew. Andrew.
But supporting in what way?
Is your name Andrew? Anyway, go ahead, Piers.
Yeah, well, Andrew, I was going to ask Andrew, when Rachel said that she does all domestic chores, is there anything you do? I mean, do you put the bins out? Do you the trash out? I mean, what do you do anything?
I don't do shit. That's what I got a wife
Maybe a little
for.
yard work.
But not only that,
If something
but
breaks,
here- but
or
here-
there's yard work. That's about it.
yeah, cars need repair, something like that. But I'm not going to do household chores. That's what I got married for. I don't want to do household chores. Not only that, on top of that, let's just point a couple things out. She's absolutely wrong. Here's what the stats actually say: that if a child is raised in a two
So let me just speak on what Andrew just said about I don't do shit. That's what I got a wife for. Now, of course, that's probably being tongue in cheek, but of course, he actually means it as well. That to me is not a good promotion, let's say, of masculinity. I know he would say he's more masculine than feminine. He wouldn't say he's a feminine person with how he speaks. To say I got married, even as a joke, but really you're not joking, for my woman to do all the household chores is so low on the respecting your woman as an equal partner of equal value as a human being scale, that this person, Mr. Andrew, needs to rethink how he speaks about his woman publicly. And I've seen other things as well that have been contentious with me, with how he speaks about her publicly. He just made her sound like a servant, and that's it. And if you're going to make a joke like this, then add something else. But, I love her for doing that. I love that she can make my life easier. She's so beautiful that she raises my kids and allows me to work and do what I am passionate about, which is debating. No, that's what I got married for. No, it's not funny. She's a human too, obviously. I'm not saying he denounces that. But that's not going to feel good to you as a person, regardless if you're married to that person, regardless if you're so-called even enlightened. That ego guy, that identity is going to feel away. It's going to feel away. So why not help your partner with the words that you use. So that didn't sit good or well with me. Even in this little still we have right now, notice that Rachel's eyes are closed. Maybe she's blinking at this moment, but it's interesting that I'm saying all of this and her eyes are closed. Is she trying to keep some calm right now? So yeah, don't talk about your woman like she's a dog like that. No, don't do that. If you're going to say, okay, she does all the chores, then at least add again. But I love her for doing that. And Rachel even said that you do garden work and you fix things that need to be fixed. But you wanted to portray the notion that, no, you don't do anything, literally. And you're proud of that. Why not say, no, yeah, I fix things and I do the garden. I mean, this guy, man.
Parent household, they're going to have way better outcomes. And if they have a present mother who's more present with it, they're going to have way better outcomes. Every single data point backs this up. The outsourcing of children to public school, especially for 8 hours a day, is absurd. Stop. Let me finish the point. Let me finish the point, and then you can respond. Let me finish the point.
I've got to say, Clementine, someone who doesn't like being interrupted, you interrupt.
Why is it that you won't let me finish the point?
I got a text message from your producer, Piers, telling me to interrupt if I disagreed with anyone.
Yeah.
So take it up with them.
I think
that was a great gotcha. Respect to Clementine for hotting Pierce up like that. I got a text from your producer telling me to do just this. Great. Now Pierce is gonna run with his tail between his legs now. Watch his backtracking.
What's changed since that text message is you've made a point of objecting to being interrupted. So I don't think you can do that.
And yet I keep being interrupted. So that's just the state of play.
Why don't you practice what you preach and don't interrupt Andrew when he's trying to finish his point?
Yeah, so look, I've just finished the point.
Would he make a point? He hasn't made.
Rachel kept interrupting Clementine, but you're not getting at her. This feels very biased towards Clementine. And I'm on no one's side here. I'm only on the side of unity, right? They've clearly been not letting her speak and interrupting her when they don't agree with her, but vice versa is not okay apparently.
Made one
I just did. I made multiple points. All the data points are
he's
against
made the point that he doesn't respect his wife.
You're still not,
lady.
You still can't stop talking.
He didn't want to do anything
for himself. You can't stop talking, lady. This is why it should say the 19th under that shirt. You cannot even be quiet long enough to hear a counterpoint. Here's the counterpoints. The data you're citing, you don't have any when it comes to outcomes for children, when it comes to outsourcing their raising.
Incorrect.
None.
Incorrect.
No. Show me any that shows that you sending your kid
which data are you saying?
Would you stop so that I can finish?
No. You can't speak for that long and not let somebody respond to some of your points. You can't make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points, multiple points, and not let them address the first one, especially if it's triggering. No, it's not okay, Mr. Andrew.
No, tell me.
I'm trying to at least finish the question. Yes, okay.
This is not good moderation from Pierce. I can see this a mile away, literally.
Here's the thing. One more time. All data points to the fact that if you outsource the raising of your children,
you can't
especially
stand
when
there
they're young,
and say all data. You actually have to cite it.
Cite any data that shows.
Say that.
Cite.
I agree with her, and I said this earlier.
Any data ever that shows that you outsourcing the care of your child is good for the child. Any. Yeah, that's right.
Koontz.
Nothing. You got Stephanie Koontz doesn't say that. You're lying.
Do you even know who Stephanie Koontz is?
Yes. You mean the
Nobody
feminist
cares
writer?
who Stephanie Koontz is.
The feminist writer.
You clearly don't even know what you're talking about.
I don't.
I can tell you.
You're not even interested enough in the topic.
I'm sorry.
You're not even interested enough to respect the
Who's
topic
Stephanie
enough.
Koontz? Let's make sure we got it right. Who's Stephanie Koontz?
Stephanie Koontz is an historian. A world-renowned historian into marriage and the structure of the American
isn't a feminist,
family.
right? Isn't a feminist? I just want to make sure we're clear.
I have no idea if she's a feminist or not. I know that she's an historian.
Well, then why would you try to make a refutation about what I'm saying? Clearly, you don't know enough about the topic. It's silly.
I'm
only allowed to reference feminists. I'm not allowed to reference historians. Is that we're only? So
if you have a historian who's also a feminist,
you're clearly only allowed to reference.
If you have a historian who's also a feminist, they're biased, right?
Let me ask you, Clementine. Let me ask you.
Why are you so obsessed with whether or not she's a feminist?
Clementine, let me ask you a question.
She's a historian.
Promote bias.
Because it would be biased.
Let me try and ask a question here. Clementine, do you hate men?
No, of course I don't hate men. What an absurd, reductive question.
Well, why did you
think that was an interesting?
I hate you.
Why in 2020 did you tweet the coronavirus isn't killing men fast enough?
I I tweeted that in 2020 as a misguided tweet, but it was actually much of a part of a longer
Misguided tweet.
thread.
Coronavirus
And
isn't killing men
and I
fast
apologize
enough.
for
You
it,
say you
Piers.
don't hate
I
men.
apologize for it, Piers.
You
I
thought a
apologize
deadly
for it at the time.
pandemic virus wasn't killing men fast enough.
Apologize to men again. Do it again. You haven't apologized to me for saying that you want me to die from the coronavirus.
Well, I would
say
have to
you're sorry.
consider you a man to apologize you for that.
Say you're sorry. Say you don't even know what a woman is.
You know
How
what
you
else-
a
you know what
man
else-
is.
I don't
Apologize.
consider you a man.
Andrew,
Say-
I
say
would
you're
like for her to
sorry.
apologize to me because I do not appreciate her saying that my own husband does not respect me. Of course he respects me. He respects me as a mother and as a wife. He treats me like gold. Who the hell are you to tell me if he respects me or not?
You wouldn't have to get paid for this if you had a husband.
I didn't say that he. Where did I even?
You did.
mention-
You said he clearly doesn't
You
respect
did
his
say
wife.
that. I heard you say.
you mean the piece of shit that you're married to? Yeah, he clearly
Oh,
doesn't
there we
respect
go.
you.
Wow.
He
Hey,
makes
lady.
jokes about how
Hey,
he married
lady.
you. He doesn't
He's
do
not
dinner
the
at
piece
the
of
house
shit
because
in
that's
this
why he married
panel.
the wife.
That would be you,
That's why
man.
you got
Right.
You're the one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, let's get back to the topic here. You're the one who is
That would be
insisting
nice.
that there's no data
the
proving
list
that
of topics that we
shut
would say.
up.
I
Shut
would
your
genuinely.
mouth.
Okay,
Nobody wanted to
hang
hear
on.
that.
Time out. I would genuinely
Rachel says, "Shut up."
like to know. You said it was misguided to say the coronavirus wasn't killing men fast enough. Why
Yeah, it
would
was a
you?
terrible thing to say.
So why
it was
did
a terrible
you?
thing to say.
No,
to you.
I understand.
I
it's a
already said that the title
Don't
was
worry,
a
let me
terrible thing
finish
to
my
say.
question. I do understand it's a terrible thing to say. My question, my bemusement, why would you say that?
I can tell you why she said it, because there is, unfortunately, this viral trend that has been going for many years. I say at least 5-6 years, of it being funny to treat men like we are just objects, like we have no feelings, and we can just say men are stupid. Actually, no, for a long time, actually, because when I think about movies and cartoons, men being portrayed so often as being stupid, particularly fathers, as stupid, as dumb, as not being able to get anything right. The woman comes, saves the day, etc., etc., etc. Okay, I'm just speaking objectively. I'm thinking of things like The Simpsons and Family Guy, and all these films, or Johnny Depp being slapped in Pirates of the Caribbean, and all these other shows. This other show with Eva Longoria, I can't remember, and her husband, and she slaps him like it's funny, and things like that. That's why, because there's this belief that men are actually stupid, and you can just say what you want to men and you get no repercussions back, which often is the case because men in general are quite benevolent. That's why you think you know that you're going to get a laugh from lots of women, okay, who just say these things. Like, remember, there was this, for any of you thinking I'm talking rubbish, there was literally a movement, Kill All Men, which trended on social media. I remember it, especially on TikTok. Kill all men. That's not a funny thing to say. Imagine if the hashtag was kill all black people, kill all white people, kill all women. Nobody would be okay with that. So kill all men. Why is that funny? Why is that okay? Why is that allowed? Why was that hashtag even allowed? Okay, so it goes quite deep in the perception of men that you can just say whatever you want to men, even joke about killing them, as she did, and knowing that you won't get a backlash from it. And that's a problem, because we shouldn't be saying kill all anybody. We should be saying heal. We should be saying love, if anything, when it comes to everybody. Feed everybody, shelter everybody.
Because I was really frustrated with the articles that I was reading about how the pandemic was it was derailing women's workplace. It was derailing women's economic trajectories. And there was a specific article that I had read about a woman who had founded her own company. She was the CEO of it. Her husband had taken a sabbatical prior to the pandemic. And within 2 days of childcare closing down, he said, I can't take care of the 4-year-old. And she quit her job to go home and look after the kid.
What's that got to do with you
frustrated, I
wanting
was
more men
worried.
to be killed?
And
So that's one
Piers,
person.
if you're going to ask me
Who
the question, then
cares?
let me
The
finish.
No, you know what,
The
Clementine?
entire
You know what, Clementine? When you tweet, literally,
So I wrote a
coronavirus
tweet
isn't
thread.
killing men fast enough, I think I'm entitled to push you a little bit more than it was a bit misguided. You're literally calling for the mass culling of men while simultaneously pretending
Oh my God.
you don't hate
Piers,
men.
come on. You know that don't be disingenuous. You know that that's not what I was calling for. You
did
know
he
that it was
misinterpret?
Literally said
Kill all men?
coronavirus isn't killing
you
men
know
fast
that it was a
enough.
glib tweet, and you know
You see? Do you see? So she's trying to pass it off as, oh, you know, you're being disingenuous. You know, it was just a soft tweet or glint tweet or whatever she just said there. Because again, you can say these things about kill all men, knowing that you won't get a repercussion. But if it was kill all women or kill all Jews or kill all black people, kill all, I don't know, South Londoners, kill all Yankees, there will be a massive backlash. But when it comes to the gender of men, for some reason, you can say anything about killing all men in a funny way, and it's not actually funny. We and women, you know, you need to take that seriously as well. Like, don't fall into that trap of talking about men like they don't matter, because some of you have sons, some of you have nephews, some of you have fathers, okay? And we know that suicide, unfortunately, is the biggest killer of men around the world, but at least in the UK and I believe America, right? Under like the age of like 50. That's crazy. The biggest killer being suicide, like not even like being killed on the street or something, suicide. Okay, and these things don't help.
You know that I also apologized for it shortly after that. You know that I was sincere in my apology.
You didn't apologize
so why
to
dragging
me.
it out 5 years
Can
later?
you apologise to Andrew, please?
Well, you apologized to me for saying you wanted me to die.
I would not apologize to you if I did something to you, let alone for doing nothing to you.
Even if you did something to me, I wouldn't apologize.
Was that the only time, Clementine? Hang on. I've got a follow-up. I have a follow-up. Clementine, was that the only time you've tweeted that you want all men to be killed?
Yes, why don't you just say what you want to say?
No, I'm just asking you a question. Have you tweeted previously?
I have tweeted prior to that.
Kill all
men as a joke.
Wow. And I just said just before she even said this. See, kill all men as a joke. Do you see? Do you see? This was a massive thing going around the social media. People saying, and she just said herself, as a joke. It's not a joke. This is the thing. It's not funny. If it was kill all women, nobody would be laughing. And feminists particularly would be going crazy. If it was kill all babies, kill all Chinese boys, people would be going crazy. It's never a joke to say kill all particular demographic, specific demographic. It's never okay. But why is it okay when you say kill all men? Even some of you listening to this right now, you're probably thinking, it's a joke. It's not a joke. What if it's punch all babies in the face? Would it be okay? It's never a joke. There's a problem with the perception of men in our particularly Western world, where you think that you can say kill them and it's funny. No, might sound weird, but men have feelings too, and the suicide rates prove that. So if we want more balance, more love, less misogyny, and of course I don't agree with misogyny in the world, it's not going to help when on the other side you have people saying it's funny, like actual leaders of female groups saying it's funny to joke to kill all men. Is that really going to help them see you in a loving light, see you even as a good person even? Right? So it's like tit for tat. So people, men making fun of women and women making fun of men, and some going too far. It's not helping anybody. And even right now you can see she's laughing. It's not funny. And again, if any of you listen to this thinking, oh no, it's funny, think of boys hearing this. I was once a young boy. If I was hearing this from grown women, oh my goodness, I would feel like crap. I feel like, man, I can't be a man then. I need to be something else. I would definitely think that. Okay, as a young enough child. Because of course, the adults know everything when you're a child. Adults know everything. Kill all men because X, Y, Z. Oh, I don't want to be a man now. So let me be, I don't know, more feminine or literally become a girl or something. Purely because of fear. That's not the right way to have an identity. It shouldn't be based on fear.
As a joke, right?
I have.
As a joke.
So
Very
you
funny,
quite regularly
very
think
funny
it's funny to say that men should be
No,
killed?
I don't quite regularly. There's two examples that you can think of.
Yeah, you don't hate men,
One of
but you
which
did
was
tweet
5 years
kill all
ago,
men,
and
and
one
then you
of which was
tweeted
at
the
least 10
coronavirus
years
isn't
ago.
killing men fast enough. I put it to you.
Yeah, oh, hang on. I've also
I put it to you. You probably do
I've
hate
also
men
tweeted
if
that
you
men
want us
should be
all dead.
fired into the sun. I've also said that men should be fired into the sun. Tell me, at what point do these very clearly glib, and yes, I have apologized for them, very clearly glib tweets from a time as well where Twitter was such a toxic, I don't tweet anymore, it's a bad place for everybody. At what point do those things be accepted as glib, misguided, regrettable, deeply apologetic for them now, remarks that you would never say again?
You don't sound very apologetic.
I think you should just admit that you don't like men. I think it's the problem comes when you keep denying.
I don't like you very much, Piers.
I don't care if you like me or not. You spray gun me in public.
But why do I have to sit here and admit to you that I don't like men? What are you hoping
I just
to
asked you
gain
if you do or not. You said you don't hate men.
I said that I did.
You spend all your time wanting us to be dead.
Me.
Hang on.
Well,
She loves me. You just got to shoot him in the sun. That's all.
Putting the stocks
Shoot him in the
You
sun.
don't like me. You think Andrew's a piece of shit.
I
So
don't
that's
like
not every single man involved in this debate. You hate.
is absurd.
Every
Every
man
single
in
man.
this debate, Clementine, you said you hate.
Relationships with men, you shouldn't be giving advice on it.
Emily, what was that?
I hate
I'm
every man
saying
in this
if you
debate.
live a
That's
life
true.
where you've been unsuccessful in relationships, whether it's friendship, love, marriage, whatever it is, I think you're probably the last person in the position to be giving advice what women should do with men. I mean, I don't feel any animosity
How do
towards
you know
men,
that
even when it
I've
comes to
been
him saying,
unsuccessful in friendships and relationships? That's a
well, are you
very
a single
odd.
mom?
That's a very odd. Well, being a single mother doesn't mean that I'm unsuccessful in relationships. I already said before that I have a very beautiful co-parenting relationship with my son's father. He lives in the same apartment building as us. We're deeply close
I mean,
friends.
that's right,
So
but it didn't work out.
I don't
but you
understand
seem
why
bitter
you think
towards
that
men.
is. I'm not bitter towards men at all. I'm annoyed at the expectation that some men on this panel have, that women should do everything for them. I'm certainly angry at the fact that
Wait a
in
second.
the UK,
Do you think
a woman.
Andrew does
I'm
everything?
I mean, I do everything
I
I
do
do. My
everything
boyfriend,
for
I'm
him.
not
Angry
better.
that in the UK a woman is killed every 3 days by a man. I'm angry that in America 3 women are killed every day.
Well, I don't.
by a man.
How many
In
men
Australia,
are killed every day by men?
That's kind of a different
By a
thing.
man.
How many men are
I'm
killed
angry that
every day by
globally,
men?
one woman is killed every 10 minutes by an
How
Indian
many
woman.
men are
How many
killed?
babies do you
Lots of
women
things
kill?
I'm angry about. And I'm angry
How many babies do you guys kill?
This is what they
one
do.
in 3 girls over the age of 15 will experience sexual violence in her lifetime.
No,
I'm very
that's
angry
another
about
fake
that.
statistic,
I'm
and I would
angry
love
about
to tear
rape and
this
sexual
apart.
assault. I'm angry about the fact that the most dangerous person to a woman is a man that she knows. I'm
That's a
angry about
lie.
all of these things, yes, but that doesn't mean that I hate men. That doesn't mean that I don't.
You just want to shoot him into the sun.
And I have the data to prove it.
For men's greatness with women and with
You want
children.
to shoot men into the sun, you want them to kill like coronavirus, and you want all of us dead, and you hate both the men on the panel. Other than that, you love men. We
You
get
love
it.
them. You love them. They're great.
Well,
Even though
I'm
they're out there being a
Can I
bunch of
refute
evil
some of the
rapists.
baloney she
which is
just
that I
spewed?
hate
Well,
the men on this
my
panel.
thing is, like, can't you
And-
admit that you at least like men enough that they gave you a beautiful child you're super grateful of? I mean, that's a positive.
This is honestly one of the most absurd conversations I've ever had in my life. I've just
I
sat
kind of
here
agree.
and explained that
I
I,
kind of
don't
agree.
hate men. I've just sat here and explained that I have a wonderful relationship with my son's father. I've just sat here and said, you know, that I've apologized for these things that I've said in the past. We've all said terrible things. Piers, you've said terrible things on Twitter. We've all
Well,
said terrible
name
things
one.
and apologized for
Name
them
one.
afterwards.
What have I said? What have I said? Name one.
Oh, Piers, do you want me to look them up right
Yes,
now?
please.
Okay, let me
Yeah,
just
what-
give me a second.
Tell me
to
a
go
terrible
to
thing
go
I've said
to,
on Twitter.
Piers Morgan.
This is interesting.
While
Terrible
she's looking,
tweets.
can I refute her fake statistics that she just gave? Because I
History
hear
of Piers
feminists
Morgan's
repeat this
terrible
all the time.
opinions.
Well,
There
go
we
on.
go. I'll look at that.
Give me a terrible opinion.
Oh, Rachel, I thought you were talking while I'm just scrolling through the
yeah.
endless
No.
Well, we
terrible
can all
you
wait,
got
Clementine.
more. I wanna
The
hear it.
clock is ticking, though. I mean,
I
find
wanna
one
hear it.
terrible thing that I've tweeted.
This is so interesting.
Oh, I think that All Lives Matter was pretty bad.
You think all lives matter? It's a bit better than men should be dying faster.
All Lives Matter.
Let's just
All
compare
Lives
all
Matter
lives
as a
matter
rejection of
against
Black
more
Lives
men
Matter.
should die
All
faster.
Lives Matter. All Lives Matter is a rejection of Black Lives Matter.
I didn't reject Black
it's
Lives
pretty-
Matter. I didn't reject
it's
Black
pretty-
Lives Matter. I
It's
didn't
pretty
reject
ignorant
it.
to the.
I didn't reject.
To be fair, it's true. When the All Lives Matter movement came out, it was obviously in opposition to Black Lives Matter going through something at that time. Of course, all lives matter, but it was obviously as a way to say, hey, shut up. we matter as well, without giving space for black people just to be upset about police brutality. Just that specific thing. Let's give them space to be upset about that for a minute.
Black Lives Matter. I didn't reject Black Lives Matter. Don't lie.
No, but you did.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. You see, it's the trouble. You say that I've said terrible things. When you try and find them, you don't have any.
I'm saying you're looking at it right here, Piers. All lives matter.
He didn't say white lives matter. He said all lives matter, which is true. And any decent
Do you not think all lives matter, Clementine?
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Clementine, do all lives matter?
I think that all lives deserve respect.
Do they matter?
I think that in the context...
Do all lives matter, Clementine?
You do know what? All lives do matter. And
thank you.
What's controversial?
The one terrible thing you found I've ever said, you completely agree with. So on that delightful note, where you agree with the one terrible thing that I've ever apparently said, we will leave this compelling debate. Thank you all.
That's funny. So yeah, my main takeaway for you, my fellow expressions of consciousness, please remember that you are the observer of the thoughts, you are the observer of your emotions, the observer of the experience that even includes your body. You might think that you are in your brain. How can you be in your brain when your brain is an experience too? You know you have a brain. You can feel your brain. You can even see your brain if you had a certain, an X-ray, or there's a certain injury that I don't want you to have. Okay, the brain is a part of experience. That's why you know you have it. You can even describe how it feels. Like I said, we can even look at brains. But the observer that is experiencing the experience cannot be found in any way, shape or form. Why is that? Because it's what you truly are. You can't look at what you truly are. Like a dog trying to chase its tail, you can't find it. It's always behind you, literally behind you. It's like the foreground to the foreground, background to the foreground of experience. Okay. But there is no background or foreground without the other. Because we say there's a background because there's a foreground. We say there's a foreground because there's a background. So they are inseparable. But just remember, the you-ness, the I-ness is more the so-called background, in the sense that that's where the foreground emanates from. Where it dances within, moves within. It's like the space that allows the experience, the foreground to be. We're not always experiencing the so-called foreground, that is to say, the phenomenal world, phenomenal experience. How do we know that? We know that because when you're sleeping, for example, no dreams. You can't remember that. You can't think of that because there's no so-called foreground. But the background, as that stillness, just is. So what you're experiencing, if anything, as a foreground, is the absence of the activity of the phenomenal experience of the mind. When you get too identified with your identity, which is an accumulation, it's something that you are using and adding to with each experience that your personhood has. When you identify too much with that, then you can become overly defensive about something that you're not really. All of these 5 people on a panel think they're so different from each other and views this, views that. But really, if they were all just to be silent, what would happen? Complete unity. And that silence is actually what we truly are. As I said, that pure observer, it's silent. It's more silent than silent. It's so silent that we can observe silence, because what we truly are, the observer, is more silent than it. We can observe vastness in the world. Why? Because what we truly are is vaster than vastness. That's why it can contain the experience of vastness. It can contain the experience of silence, of stillness. That's what we truly are. If I was on this panel, I would say that to all these people. What are you when you are not thinking? And that, my fellow expressions of consciousness, is what I leave you with. What and who, or who are you when you are not thinking? This will help lead you to self-awakening. Have a wonderful day, my fellow expressions of consciousness.